Okay, let's talk about the Detroit Lions and what a disappointing loss that we just saw from them. And you have to start to look towards next year, right? For one team, they're champions. The 31 other teams, they have to think about next year right after the loss. So I want to make a video and kind of break down where are they at right now? Are they okay? Because there is the immediate thing you think of when you think of the Lions next year, which is you have to assume they will be healthier. And to be clear, you're never going to be fully healthy. And that's why sometimes the injury thing seems like more of an excuse, because every team has injuries. The Lions had significantly more injuries than your average team would. You assume next year they will be more healthy, and one of the things that they should, in theory, have is a potential Defensive Player of the Year candidate in Aiden Hutchinson, who led the league in most advanced statistics and even a lot of just box score statistics before going down with the injury. If he is healthy and is able to play next year, which, I mean, they were talking about him maybe coming back for the Super Bowl, so he certainly should be ready next year. That's a big jump right away. There's some other players that could be gone. So first, let's look at their key free agents. There actually isn't a ton. So these are their key free agents, and then my money projection next to them and how many millions of dollars. Definitely just some rough guesses here. But it's worth mentioning, they actually have a decent amount of just players who are free agents. Only a few key ones. I think the top three are the very notable ones. So Carlton Davis, who they traded a third-round pick essentially for a one-year rental of Davis. And the issue with Davis is he's a very good corner, but he has struggled to stay healthy late in his career. Do you try to run it back? Because, I mean, we saw, as much defensive line injuries as the Lions had early on this year, they didn't really miss that much of a beat. But once Davis went down and the secondary also took a hit, and it wasn't just him, but you saw really it took a hit. Kevin Zeitler, who, if I remember correctly, my podcast co-host, when we did our All-Pros, he put Zeitler as his All-Pro at the guard position. A really good player. You could argue a bit of a one-year wonder in a great offensive line. Is he going to get a monster deal? I'll say he probably gets around a $15 million deal as well. And Levi Onwuzurike, another guy who really had a breakout year. He was a PFF darling this year. He's a young player. Good young interior defensive linemen tend to get at least $15 million. Do the Lions have to let him go because they have other defensive linemen they're paying? Those are the questions. Also, I threw on Dan Skipper, Craig Reynolds, and Tim Patrick. Three players who do very specific things for the Lions. Does somebody try to swoop them in? Those are kind of fan favorites for the Lions, especially Skipper and Reynolds. And you also think about, like, if Ben Johnson goes to the Raiders, let's say, does he try to bring some of these guys over? That's the question. However, you look at their projected cap space this next year, they're actually okay. $57 million. They could re-sign all those guys if they want to, or sign their replacements, spend similar money doing that. They're okay there. 2026 is when things get a little bit hairy. Only $22 million in projected cap space. That usually goes up. Usually the projections go up, and of course you can spend over the cap, but they're going to be pressed against the cap already. And you look at their free agents for that year. These are the players whose contracts will expire: Zadarius Smith, DJ Reader, Aiden Hutchinson, Alex Anzalone, Khalif Raymond, Amik Robinson, Jamison Williams, Kirby Joseph's on this list, Josh Pascal is on this list, even Jake Bates is on this list. That's a lot of players, and obviously, you're not letting Hutchinson walk, you're not letting Jamison Williams walk. You might have to make some tough decisions, though, once you get to there. So, essentially, I think my main point with this Lions team is they got another year, but they don't have much more time to waste, essentially. There's no getting around it. It's a brutal loss. I mean, I do feel like the NFC was kind of weak this year outside of Detroit, who definitely lived up to the expectation. The Eagles are good. And listen, Commanders, they're getting hot at the right time. It is what it is. But definitely this feels like a missed opportunity. There's two things left with the Lions we have to talk about. First is draft capital. Obviously, so much of this team was built off of the draft capital they got in the Matthew Stafford trade. But now here's where being a really good regular season team and going one and done really kills you, is because of their record, they are not going to be picking 27th in the draft, so that you don't get a particularly great draft pick. They draft well. They'll probably still be able to fill out this roster, right? That's usually what they do. Of course, how often can you rely on getting stars in round 2? It can happen, but it can also, that well can run dry a little bit. So that's the one thing. And the other thing, which I kind of touched on earlier, is the coaching stuff. Maybe the silver lining of this game is perhaps Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are less likely to get head coaching jobs. Personally, I think for Ben Johnson, he is going to be fine. If he wants one of these head coaching jobs, he will take it. If he decides that he is going to want to stay with the Lions, it will be because he decides he wants to stay with the Lions. I don't think the Raiders are going to say, no, we don't want you as a head coach because you had one bad playoff game, which wasn't even really that bad. His concepts were working. Goff just made some bad throws and the defense couldn't get a stop. So, okay, one play went very bad for Ben Johnson, that trick play. But I think that it's a question because we did see last year, it seemed like he had job opportunities, including apparently a job opportunity with Washington, which he turned down. That's what the rumor was. That's interesting. But does he get a head coaching job somewhere? And then Aaron Glenn, who I thought did a great job with this defense. Listen, I know the defense got torched. What's he supposed to do? I think he ran every single coverage in the book, and Washington had an answer for all of them. At a certain point, personnel matters, and if you don't have the personnel, you don't have the personnel. If the Detroit Lions lose both of their coordinators, that's going to be a massive blow. I think Ben Johnson was a massive force with this team. I don't think they're dead if they lose their coordinators because they still have one of the best offensive lines in football, if not the best. They have a really good receiving core. I still like Jared Goff. I know he had a bad game today. I still think he's a quality quarterback. So, it's not a disaster. And like I said, you should get Aiden Hutchinson back. But you're not going to have the continuity. You have to nail those coaching hires, which credit to Dan Campbell. He really nailed the coaching hires last time, but now you have to do it again. There's no guarantee things go the same, and you're kind of running out of time. So it's the NFL. Things can turn on you in a hurry. Unless you have Patrick Mahomes, you kind of, these things can come and go. And they don't have Patrick Mahomes, so you gotta view this as a bad opportunity, blown opportunity. But I would still say, and I think where I'm landing on with all of this is, if I'm the Lions, re-sign, I think most of the guys. I would probably just re-sign just about everybody they had. Try to run it back. Hope you stay healthier this time. Maybe even make a trade. I wouldn't hate the idea of, there was some talk of should they trade for Max Crosby. I don't know if Crosby's available, but I don't even hate the idea of trading at the deadline for a player, just to say, you know what, this window isn't going to be open for forever. Let's kind of do what the Rams did when they traded for Stafford and then also traded for Von Miller, of let's kind of just go all in. This is the year that we have to be a great team, and the Rams added Odell Beckham Jr. too that year, right? That would be my mindset. Don't be afraid to make a bold move. We saw them do that last year, trading for Carlton Davis. I wouldn't hate the idea of doing something similar, and hope that you get better injury luck. And I think they still have a chance next year. But again, and then you got to just hope that you don't lose your coordinators. But if you do what you can. I think the window's closing, but I don't think it's closed yet. Lions fans, I'll leave you with that bit of hope. I think you still have a chance next year. There is always next year. This is not the same old Lions, but definitely a crushing defeat. I felt so bad for those Lions fans, didn't you? Oh my God, that's tough, but that's sports. It's designed to break your heart. Only one team can be happy every year, and it's always going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's where we're at. But yeah, those are my thoughts on all of this. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.